Hello there. I came you here because Lee sent you. He told me there'd be someone coming by to hear what growing up along the Whitewater Canal was like. Oh, pardon me. My name is Jane Brayer. You're probably wondering about me since Lee said he didn't tell you much details. Anyhow, I assume you're wondering why he sent you to me, of all people. Well, I think it's because people consider me a bit of an expert on the canal. That's especially because I spent much of my time at the Vinton's Hotel. Especially since my pa worked as a stonemason here in Cambridge City and in Hagerstown. I know you don't have much time, so stop me if I'm going on too much. Where to start? Let's see. Okay, let's start around the southeastern aqueduct down at Simmons Creek. It's a bit confusing since there's two of them, but if you were coming up the canal from Ohio, it's easier to distinguish them. When I was around 6, both aqueducts were destroyed in just a 2-year span by freshets that brought flooding, fallen limbs, and other such things that caused a nuisance. It was in 1847 and 48 that this happened, and my pa went down to help with the rebuilding. My pa, as you know, is a stonemason. Being from West Virginia, he had experience dealing with such things, as the rain and melting snow that comes off the mountains causes a sure lot of flooding and landslides. I don't remember much about the work there, but I very much believe that it was rough and mighty frustrating for the workers that came to fix the damages down there, especially with those kinds of repairs. It wasn't easy to get the numbers, but I actually got the opportunity to talk with someone who worked with Samuel Parker, the second president of the Whitewater Canal Company. She told me with utmost certainty that there was at least $80,000 in damages and another $90,000 spent on repairs. Luckily, the canal opened back up and it allowed ferries and boats coming in from Ohio and Indiana to continue. With the repairs, waves of people from all over started coming back through here on the canal. Of course, none of that compares to when the canal first opened to the people here. While it invigorated the people, nothing quite compares to the stories of how my parents came to find Cambridge City as their home. My home. None of what I have learned and accomplished here would have been possible without the meeting of my mama and pa. So, hoping to find more work, my pa took the National Road from the northern tip of West Virginia to Ohio. It was in Cincinnati that he had actually met my mama. Her name was Edith, by the way, in case you're interested. My mama was working as a store clerk at a small family-run general store when my pa came in to buy a new scarf for his travels. He was in such a rush that when he turned to say hello, sir, to the person behind the counter, he instead caught the eye of my mama. She said he nearly jumped out of his skin and looked at her like a total ninny. Mind you, this was in 1840, so it was about 26 years before that blasted Civil War ended. So when my pa turned and saw my mama's pert face, he was stunned into silence. Surprise like that would make anyone want to vamoose right out of there. Could you imagine? Anyway, I'm reminiscing. Remember, dear, feel free to stop me if I'm going on, okay? Anywho, you can assume the rest. They fell in love and married only 6 months later. Being married, my parents started to think about moving out of the city. By God's will, they heard about Cambridge City because my papa heard some talk of laborers and stonemasons being needed for some work on the canal. When the state's funds depleted, any more construction on the canal was at a standstill. Having heard about the amount of work available and wealth of industries developing in Indiana, he wanted my mama and him to settle there. As you can see by my living here, they managed it, but not without hardship. My mama, although young and healthy, came down with cholera and became so ill that my pa feared she would not make it through. With this, my pa gave up on the notion of moving westward and settling and instead found a job as my mama could no longer help run the family store. By the grace of God, my mama recovered from that grave illness and I was able to be born. Having me, my parents worked hard to save up so they could move us and discover the place they read about in the advert all those years ago. Moving on from that, I should mention that I was actually born the same year the canal was sold to the Whitewater Valley Canal Company. It was this that made it where the canal was able to open to the people here in Cambridge City around late 1845. Many boats and ferries brought settlers, travelers, immigrants, and a myriad of goods. My parents and I being a part of this since they never forgot about the opportunities here. I was only about 4 years old when we arrived here in October of that same year on the Belle of Indiana. Our arrival in Cambridge City was a boisterous one, with loud cheers and cannons going. The bands played as Captain John Lemon steered us into town. We were met with a great many people smiling, laughing, and cheering for those stepping off the boat. With such joy, we stepped onto the soil of what would become my new home. It was with this that the lively commotion of the town had begun to return, and so did the joyous company of the unique travelers. From artists to distillers, I'm fascinated with all the miraculous and uplifting stories I've heard over the years. To see such life and spirit in one small town, it truly uplifts the soul. But no such spirits have uplifted me more than my two dearest friends, Lily and Flo Vinton. I was always a bit older and quieter than them, but they didn't seem to mind. Like me, they have always been helping their parents and helping with the business. I dare say that, like me, the two Vinton girls will likely never marry because of this. I will say, though, despite this, the Vinton women seem to have always had a bit of a flair for the dramatics, landing them on plenty of social columns over the years, in which I myself have also landed in a couple. They love to strut and ride about town in beautiful gowns adorned with ruffles and ribbons. Although, since the passing of their dear mother Katherine, the once bright lights of Cambridge City have since dimmed in the face of grief. It is a loss distinctly and deeply felt in the hearts of us all. She was the kindest woman to all that knew her, and she just adored Eldridge and the girls. While my family are close, they were really something special, and the people who passed through the Vinton's Hotel knew it too. The girls and I just loved to sit on the back steps of the Vinton Hotel and wait for the Sells' boat, the Etna, to dock down at the basin. We were always so excited to see Sarah, although she insisted all of us girls call her Aunt Sally, and her husband, Valentine. After we helped bring people around the building for a meal or drink, they would always give us sweet jams and spreads with fresh baked bread. Although I didn't know this at the time, the Sells had shipped almost 20,000 barrels of flour and 1,000,000 pounds of pork from here to Cincinnati with just that boat up into the 60s. Val and Aunt Sally later left the canal business, though, after the Civil War because they wouldn't let them operate because of that cursed railroad. While I know what good it does and has brought for our town, I can't help but to feel sadness and anger over what happened with them. Luckily, Val's a smart man, has since opened the Grey Eagle livery stable. Now he deals in goods ranging from racehorses to liquor. With this, you can tell he's quite an ambitious man, much like Eldridge Vinton, of course. As you probably already can tell, Eldridge is the owner of the Vinton Hotel and my dearest friend's father. Another businessman like them was Benjamin Conklin, who owned the mill just up the street from here at the North Feeder Channel. He actually made a deal with the Hagerstown Canal Company for the perpetual water rights to run it when they faced some financial troubles. This was all on the condition that he agreed to further build the canal along the National Road and from Hagerstown. And that he did, building 2 locks. With so much ambition in just one town, the improvements on the Whitewater Canal here helped to bring around new mills and businesses. These not only brought the ability for more goods, but brought about new opportunities. Of course, like I explained to you before with the Etna and the flooding, not all stories of the Whitewater Canal are merry ones. With this, though, is the hope that it may be better in the future. While I am biased, I can only hope that Cambridge City continues to prosper and blossom so that more people like you may continue to learn from its history. You know, with you coming around by to speak with me, Lee actually asked if I have ever thought about the canal opening back up again. In all honesty, I don't believe so, but I do sincerely hope that they tell the tale of our town's passion and hard work. With fervor, the community here came together to secure the future of Cambridge City, and that should never be forgotten. May they not only see, but hear the very mirth of this town and rejoice in its long-standing dedication to helping travelers much like yourself. So one day they can ride along the same paths we did, so that when they see the Red Inn just along the water, they can imagine what life was like just as we do with our own forefathers. Just imagine it. Well, I'd love to talk more, but it's about time for me to eat, so I'll have to let you go. Tell Lee I said hello, and I wish you the best on your travels along the Whitewater Canal. Be sure to come back soon, dear.